Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the CLSR, and I'm your host, the counselor. Today, we're going to be talking about why he left, why he walked out. And of course, you're going to be thinking, what did you do wrong? Your head is in your hands. You're wondering, is this your fault? How could this have happened? And you spend a lot of time crying, thinking about the last few times that you got together, what was really going on, maybe any ex-girlfriends, thinking about their past dates. What went wrong? What could you have done differently? And why did this guy just up and leave? I mean, you might have had a feeling or you might not have had a feeling, but you're in it deep right now. I mean, you don't know what to do. Or do you? So we're going to talk about that. Today we're going to talk a little bit about why he walked out. But the truth is, we have to understand the man a little bit. How they love women, what's going through their mind. We have to take it step by step. You want to know what happened. Why did he go? We're going to be talking about a few things. Why you feel so terrible right now. We have to talk about the grieving relationship. Why did he leave? How does this work in your mind? How are you processing? And were there any signs that he was about to leave? And do you want him back? Or did you see this coming? We have to look at this seriously. The truth be told, your mind is wrapped up right now. You're super focused on this issue. However, I got to tell you, there's no one answer for this. Anything I tell you is not going to satisfy you. You're going to have to go through it, review it, and then we're going to get together and understand what were some of the indications of what was going on. Because, see, the real reason why he might have left you is in question. But the thing is, whatever he tells you, it's only going to be partial truth, right? He's going to believe or want to believe for some reason that the answer he's given you is going to be justified or it's going to appease you. But see, us men, we're not really too big on these emotions, these sensitive emotions, right? Where we're too touchy-feely. You know, he might give you a reason, and that truth might not be the real truth. It might be the truth that doesn't hurt you, right? He's trying to avoid some sort of confrontation. So he tells you either nothing or he tells you something that's not true. You got to ask yourself a few things when you're contemplating why he left. You cannot just listen to the words he gave you. You actually have to be an analyzer, and you're going to have to do some reflection on that relationship and figure these things out. And there's a few questions that you're going to have to ask yourself to come to the truth. You're going to have to get some evidence, do some real processing. And you got to ask yourself, was my relationship too negative? Did this thing kill my relationship? Right? Now, there could have been something going on in your relationship that really turned the table. Could have been the death of a loved one. Could have been a job loss, a significant other. But when negativity becomes the norm rather than the exception, it could take the life right out of your relationship, leaving one person desperate to get out. It could be as simple as you nagging him about him communicating with an ex or an ex-girlfriend who's now a friend, right? And that's no fault to your own. However, it could have gotten negative. right? We have to consider that this problem with negativity, it's something only that person who carries that negativity can fix if they want to. It's actually a skill that we develop through time. It's actually a result of our beliefs and about ourselves, about others, what people tell us, our experiences, our successes, and our failures. See, there are people who are very successful, but they have this negative part to them. So they focus on it instead of their failures rather than their successes, right? They focus on the failures. So, how could this negativity hurt your relationship? It leads us places, right? Were there any negative events going on in your relationship at the time? Things that could have pulled you apart? Think, think carefully. Was there a family member who was saying that your partner was not too good or, you know, pushing him away for you, right? You know how family could be when they don't like your partner. They'd be talking negative about them, and you don't agree with them, so you stick with them, but they keep nagging. And so it's not necessarily you that's doing the pushing and pulling. Maybe it's an outside source that's pushing your partner away from you. Maybe they didn't like him. Maybe he wasn't working up to their standards. Maybe he was too fussy involved in your relationship. Maybe the negativity that somebody was bringing to the relationship decided it's finally due, it's working, and now, boom, he's gone. And those people are talking to you in your ear saying, you see, I told you it wasn't good for you. I told you. But little did you know they were working on his last nerve. And those little comments that he looked the other way, maybe he stopped, added it up, and said, it's not worth it for me. As much as I love this girl, I'll never get to her family. She's too attached to her family. So this negativity has come in. It's creeped its way in. What about your negativity? Have you been negative towards him? Did he lose his footing? Right? Was he not paying attention to you? And then you started to agitate. You started to get at him. And maybe he couldn't handle it. Who knows? There could be a number of negative things going on that he didn't like or couldn't cope with. Maybe the future wasn't as bright as you want it to be. Maybe he couldn't predict the future at all. You see, one thing that happens is when a partner is highly emotional and they have a tendency not to manage small crises very well, the other partner picks up on this rather quickly. And they start to think to themselves, what is this person going to do if there's a big crisis going on? How will they react? How will they manage it? Right? Or is this person, when I come home a little bit late, are they on me, aggressively, or where I've been or what I'm doing every time I walk through that door? Right? Maybe he doesn't want to put up with that. Maybe it's gotten on his last nerve. Maybe he's feeling that this is not something I want to deal with in my future. Right? And if this person, if I really have to get out there and spread my wings and I have other responsibilities, and this person's acting out like this just when I'm 5 minutes late, what's going to be if I really have to spread my wings out there and take some time for myself? Maybe this is going to be a big problem, and maybe I don't want to deal with that, right? See, think about when you start dating someone. We're always trying to match them up and see if they're good for us. And sometimes that could take longer than others, right? Right? And we have a tendency to look for those highly emotional moments, gauging whether or not this emotional response matched the significance of an event. We're looking for other things. And this could be huge for us men. Men want to fix things, right? And if he kept coming in 5 minutes late and you expressed concern to him in a non emotional way, he may have fixed it immediately. But since you lost your mind and you got irate and excessive, maybe he couldn't handle it. Maybe it's something that bothered him. Now remember, it could be a combination of things, but you got to look at that. You got to look at how aggressive you were in these things that you were doing? Why did he leave? It's always going to be on your mind, but you got to add it up. You got to get the numbers together. Were you in a codependent relationship? Right? A codependent relationship is where one or both partners, they have their happiness wrapped up in the other person. They barely have any outside activities. All their interests, you know, it's intertwined in that relationship, right? You only get better and feel good when you're getting his attention, and vice versa. You are very needy. You depend on him for your approval, your love, your attention, your validation, your happiness. See, codependent relationships could either be both parties relying on each other heavily or just one person relying, and that's dangerous, right? If you're the one person in a relationship that you're relying so heavily on that person, right, that this goes on for years and this is your world, and your neediness becomes fragile, insecure when this person's not everything you want them to be or depend on. If you become that person who doesn't have their own world and their world is your world, so you're looking to them for everything. And so every move that they make, everything that they do, if it's not approved by you or you don't agree with it, you try to correct it, right? You become that needy person, over needy. So this weight of someone relying on someone in the relationship becomes too heavy. And it's hard for that person to bear. They become overwhelmed, unhappy, and they start to feel it may be too much for them to handle. And they don't want to handle it. They don't want to be your everything. They don't want to just be your center of attention. It could be smothering in a lot of cases. And you got to think about that feeling that you get when you're in that relationship where you might see somebody who has a few flaws, right? The fixer. Have you tried to fix him? Remember, it's easier to see someone else's flaws than it is to see our own. See, the problem is that a person can not ever make another person change. Despite this thinking, we try. We try heavily. See, and women in particular will get into a relationship knowing that there are things about a man that they don't like, they don't agree with, or they feel it's small. And but with a little conviction, they can do something about it. They can change him. All he needs is a good woman, right? That nurturing. I can fix it. I can do it. Well, absolutely not. It's one of the biggest mistakes you can make trying to fix someone. You gotta be realistic, man. You gotta understand that if someone's gonna change, they have to want to change. They want to make change, they're going to change. You are not going to make a person change. And a lot of us get into these relationships where we think that we can change that person for the better. However, that takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, and it really is something that is individual change. And if you do have that person change, 99% of the time they might change for a specific period of time, but they usually go back to their old habits if it wasn't them making that change. If you started to get them to change their behavior in some sort of way, usually it doesn't last. So when they go back into that relationship where they go to those old habits, that becomes problematic. See, like, think about this. Let's say, for example, if you notice your partner's drinking a little bit when you meet them, right? And you're thinking, you know what? They're drinking a little excessively, and I think that I can help them with that. They're just a little unhappy. I can make them happier. However, you get into the relationship for a while and you cut down the drinking, and they decide that they're listening to you and all your suggestions and good intentions, and they decide to slow down the drinking or stop it altogether. However, when 3 months comes back onto the calendar, they take a look and start their old habits again. And next thing you know, you're complaining about them drinking. See, they've given it up altogether, but they want to have a little drink for themselves. They feel that they're in control. But you're irate, you're angry. You tell them that, you've gone through a lot of work with them, trying to get them to stop these bad habits, and boom, you're very disappointed and you become very aggressive, angry, maybe dismissive, right? And it starts to impact the relationship. Well, this person really starts to feel bad about themselves. And they want to be who they want to be when they first met you. They don't want you to change them, but you are trying desperately. So when they don't meet your expectations, you lose it. Or you lose a little interest, and then they lose a little interest. And it goes on and on until, boom, someone's gone because we tried to fix them. As well, there's those ones that create a lot of drama. See, man, we don't like a lot of drama. We don't even know what to do with it. Generally, we want to fix things, make things better. If we could keep it simple, right? We want to show you that we love you, but we want to fix things and make it right. See, and if you're like a drama queen, complaining about the dog that chewed on the wires, or the carpet that they peed on, or uh, the food that's been left out, or, the car that didn't have any gas, and, anything that you can get at and we can deal with is great. However, we just want to show you that we love you, and we want to be able to handle fixing things, but not every little thing. It becomes overwhelming for us. All these little areas of concern, and they're not really that big. However, it's one thing after the other. And just see that is going in our mind, building up, going, okay, I want to take care of business. I like to keep it simple, but all these little things seem very dramatic to me, right? And if the person's stressed out, emotional, they're crying, hours of crying, reliving these dramatic moments of, see, and then it, to me, it can be very confusing, right? If your life becomes embroiled in drama, one thing after the other, a good man is going to get out of it. He doesn't want to be surrounded by all of this emotion. He wants it simple. He wants to do better, help out, fix things on a simple level. But all these things are just adding up. Think of them as layers above your head. Every little thing that starts to build upon, it gets heavier and heavier. And eventually, some men can't take that weight. And they don't wait. They walk. And there's also some confusion too, where um, we get this intimacy thing confused. See, many people in their relationships believe that they can build their intimacy in a relationship through sex. And the real truth is that you build intimacy in a relationship through quality time that you spend together. Now, for sure, a part of it is how you flip them sheets and have some fun under the covers, for sure. But more importantly, it's the relationship that embraces walks, hikes, talks. But us men, we're action oriented. I mean, we don't often want to have too much talk about the feelings. You know, we want to do things together. We'll even go places with you, spend some time with you, as long as you make a portion of that our objective, places we want to go as well. We don't mind spending some time. If you're talking, that's great. We're listening. But there has to be the buy-in for us as well, right? The action oriented, going places we like to. So maybe you have to get on board with that. You have to understand that you got to give a little bit in that department. Now, if he's doing all of his own objective where he only does what he wants, it could be very problematic. And then you spoil him. And so he's used to it. But a little bit of time his way on a hobby that he's doing, get a little bit interested in. Could be a little bit about cars, you know, um, planes, work, things like that. Anything that he's been interested in, try to combine some of his hobbies with some of your efforts so that you both can win. You know, do little things sometimes. Just understand it's not a lot. However, if you don't and it's all your way, because the truth is, um, some women, they have their objectives too, right? They get into their homes, they want everything done with their homes, they want this, they want that, and it's all about the homes. And hey, that's great to a certain point, but if he feels that he's not included in that, there are things that he's going to do that are going to impact the relationship negatively. Might not show interest if he's tired of the same old, right? When it seems like you're the one who's getting all their needs met and he's really not being paid attention to, right? And it starts to make you question, do you really know each other? Are you really compatible? I mean, too often you meet someone new, right? You got that attraction, there seems to be some chemistry, and then you start dating. And next thing you know, you're having fun, meeting friends and family, but you really never take the time to get to know one another initially, right? I mean, men, it's not that they don't like to talk at all. They do like to talk. They like to learn about you a little bit, really. But truth be told, they like to hear about themselves, right? It's so important to get to know one another slowly over a few dates, maybe more than a few dates. You got to take some time to sort out what you like about each other and understand what you're not so clear about. It's crucial that you're not just jumping in between those sheets together, right? Don't put the blinders on. Because if you put the blinders on, it's going to prevent you from seeing any obvious flags that are out there. You want to be a good listener. Use those decoding skills. See, you can do a lot. You can determine what his values are, what type of long term goals he may have, right? You know, you got to take the time and make sure you're listening, paying attention. You can determine his values and what his long term goals may be, right? Like if this is the type of person that wants to travel around the world, that's his goal, that he wants to hit all these different countries, that's one thing. And you get an idea. Or if, he wants to have a family or settle down and, you know, have some children. Or if his plans is to move to another country in a few years, uh, speaking a different language, adopting a new culture, assimilating somewhere else, that's something you could pick up on too. Do you really know? Is it congruent with what you think or believe or want for your future? Maybe you don't want to have children. Maybe you're not comfortable going to different countries or traveling out there. It might not be something that you subscribe to. What if you're a woman who wants to be in control of that relationship, a female led relationship? However, he might have other ideas. He wants to be the dominant one. He wants to be in control most of the time. See, these types of questions are not usually asked by couples when they get together until it's much too late. And then we struggle with it, right? Some of these challenges. You got to listen to how he speaks. Talks about his family and his friends. Spend some time with his friends and family. Get to know them. See how he behaves around them, right? See how he behaves around maybe his exes, right? See if he's communicating with them a lot. Is he over communicating to the point where you see that they still might be in love? You got to make sure your goals and his intentions and your intentions kind of connect. Whereas you can see a future together. Sometimes you really just got to look into how this relationship started and what happened at the beginning. Like, was there some unhappiness at the beginning? Were both you unhappy and you just got together just for the sake of convenience? Or was one of you happy? See, it could be the case where you might have been unhappy and you thought that maybe if you entered into a relationship with a man, it might bring you some happiness, some security, right? Someone in your life to bring you this sort of support and just balance out your life. Time could have been going on. You could have been paying attention to that clock, right? Biological clock where you feel I'm getting a little bit older and you know what, I got to have somebody, or I've been on my own for so long, I need somebody. And if I don't start meeting this clock, then guess what? I'm not going to be a very happy person. So, you were sad, you were lonely maybe a little bit, you started to feel some anxiety, and you just settled. And that's real. You settled with any guy that you felt was adequate enough. You weren't really happy, so you decided, let me just get into a relationship. Maybe things will work out. Maybe I got to live to love, right? I'll live a while and see if I can fall in love with him, right? However, you weren't really happy at the beginning. Or it could have been him. He could have been dating. He could not have been happy. He felt like, you know what? I'm getting older. I got to get out of the house. My mother and I aren't getting along too well. So I need to get out there, but I can't really afford my own place. Maybe I could hook up with this beautiful woman here and get us set up together. So we come together and we try to make it work. But for whatever reason, it's not working. You see, and there's a reason why it's not working. Because what you did was you thought a good relationship was like the frosting on a cake, not the ingredients, not the foundation, not the flour, the sugar, the eggs, the milk. All these things take that work. And what you thought is you could build something, that beautiful dessert, by satisfying this one little need, not understanding that it takes a lot to build that relationship. And if you just bring it together on a quick fix, it's bad for you. See, when you're not happy in your life, you tend to do things that you regret out of desperation. Usually, when relationships form due to either both parties being unhappy or one, it's a real challenge for the relationship to survive. However, if you are happy in your life, well balanced, you have your own friends, your own relationships, your family members that you work well with, and you both bring that together, there's a higher chance of success rate in relationships because you're both being independent and you do have your own happiness. I see what could be problematic as well is when he can't be himself, whether it's around your family or he feels that, when he's with other people, he can really be himself. For example, if you are having family members over and he feels that, he's got to hide who he is, he's ashamed of some of the things that he's done, like for work, and it's not meeting their standards. So he's got to hold it in, keep his mouth quiet, or you're the very vocal one where you're answering for him. And so whenever people talk to him, he feels that he can't say what he wants to say, or he can't be himself in that environment. And he feels that he has to overcompensate, etc., right? Just to be himself. Or when he's in a different environment, he is himself. So he starts to look at that and say, well, why is it when I'm with her in that relationship, I don't feel myself? However, when I'm with my friends, I can be who I want to be, and nobody's correcting me all the time and telling me who to be, or putting me down, or telling me how to think, or I just can't be myself. See, getting at someone, nagging them, or badgering them about something, right? Like, you have to understand that it could get under their skin. So there are ways that you can put your opinion forth or discuss things in a meaningful way, or let them have their say and feel who they want to be in any environment if you go about it the right way. Like if you want them to be themselves and open, you got to learn certain strategies to help them be themselves. Make sure you're not taking control and make sure they're genuine in all cases, in all environments, right? And how do you do that? Communication. You have to communicate with your partner. And you have to talk to some of his friends and family. How is he? Right? Like you can get an indication of how they may be when you're not around by discussing this with family members, even discussing it with him. But when he can't be himself, that really agitates a lot of men and it actually turns them when they have to pretend to be something that they're not. Also, sadly to say, there are also reasons why he leaves because maybe someone's not taking care of themselves so well anymore, right? Maybe you start letting things go, not caring about your appearance, not taking care of your health. You've got so accustomed to that relationship that, it's whatever. So you don't eat properly. You have actually probably gained weight. You're agitated half the time. You're not eating healthy. Um, you feel as if you don't really care. You're demonstrating that, it's just commonplace for you. And maybe he could be taking care of himself, but he sees that you're not taking care of yourself, and it's not attractive. See, I've said it once, and I'm going to say it 100 times. Attraction plays a very big part in relationships. We can't underestimate that. The loss of attraction impacts relationships. If he feels the woman he fell in love with has gone, you used to be adventurous, vivacious, outgoing, and now all of a sudden you're bogged down with your job. You rarely take time. You don't do anything adventurous anymore. You appear to be drained, you're just turning into someone that he's not impressed with. Or he doesn't recognize anymore because you're letting yourself go in so many different ways. You've become so comfortable, complacent, and set in your routines that you're just not willing to break out and be that person that he needs you to be in that sort of way. Oh, it sounds like a lot. It really is, but that's work. Relationships are work. You got to kind of balance it out. Look what's going on around you. There's just going to be some serious challenges right now, and you're not going to feel good about it when you break up, right? Whether he initiated or you did, uh, you're going to go through some thoughts, some emotional responses that are going to weigh on you. And it generally is going to be because you miss them. You're trying to understand what went wrong. You want to be true to yourself, but there's more going on when you really take time to think. There are things that you need to know. You need to understand that there are chemical reactions. Happiness hormones. These are chemicals in your brain. They're produced by the brain. It's the dopamine, oxytocin, and serotonin. These chemicals are produced and higher than normal levels when you're in a happy, loving relationship. However, when you're not in a happy relationship and it starts to deteriorate, if not end completely, you start to go through some withdrawals. And see, some of the researchers say that this happy hormone that you have in your mind, once in withdrawal, it starts to spiral, right? It's almost like an addiction, like someone who's addicted to cocaine, but it's not as severe as cocaine, but it's like an addiction. Your body goes through some withdrawal symptoms, right? Once this happy hormone starts to dissipate, you start to feel things, this physical pain more intensely. Your body will crave these chemicals again, right? They want to give you the feeling, this immediate gratification. They want to be where they were before. They want this happiness hormone to come back. So you might do things to get this feeling back, this happiness hormone, including drinking, overeating, excessive shopping, spending a lot of money, becoming sexually promiscuous. Your body wants those chemicals to increase again so badly that you will crave these activities, these adventures. And often, if you're not satisfied and you don't recover these happiness hormones, you will actually sink into a depression. You won't eat at all. You might even lose your appetite. You might become grouchy, right? Experience some of these sleepless nights, restless nights, tossing and turning, thinking all the time, overthinking, overprocessing. All because you are focusing, fixated on the moments you had, those happy moments that you shared together in that relationship. Or you're focusing on the reason why you broke up. Either one, you start to spiral down into that depression. And this is where we become very cautious. We have to understand you're at a critical state right now. You have to think about why you can't get out of bed, why you can't stop crying. You just feel so bad. You're down in the dumps. This is where the counselor says you need to seek some professional counseling. You have to get some support. You have to get off your duff and do something about it. You got to educate yourself because you don't want to be languishing in that depression too long because you might experience some suicidal thoughts. But if you do, I'm telling you, get yourself to an emergency room, get out. The counselor's saying get some help. Get yourself out. Go out there and find some help. I don't care. Don't wait. Don't debate because these are trying times and it will bring you down. And you can't let it get you down. You have to know this is a temporary feeling that you're going through. You will be okay because I said you'll be okay. You got to give it some time. 99% of the people go through this feeling and it's temporary. You have to give it some time. But immediately you get out there if you have to. Don't wait for no 5-month appointment, which they're giving, especially during the pandemic. Seems like these appointments are getting longer and longer. But you want to get out there and get some immediate, tell people what's going on, get some help for yourself immediate. This is a very crucial time in your life because you got to think about when you got together with that person. See, when you got together, it turned from the I to the we, especially depending on how long you've been together. You may have formed this single identity as a couple. Like women have a tendency to do this faster, much quicker than men because they feel a little bit more committed earlier to the relationship, often, right? Instead of the I, you've been referred to as the you. You too. You're great. You're great together. But now, that doesn't exist anymore. You're not the we couple anymore. It's now the you show, which means you're broken up and it's just you on your own again. And your values that you shared together have changed. And now you need to re identify who you are and what you're all about. Spending time together on those Saturdays, you're not going to do that anymore. Going for that trip, that's not going to happen anymore. Waiting for that person to come home or them waiting for you, it's not going to exist anymore. Changing up what you can afford and what lifestyle that you want might change because it's not the we, it's now the me. And here we are facing this very difficult challenge, this emotional trauma of letting go of the love that you had for him. Even if you were the one that let go, you still cared about this person. You still had a love for them at some point. And once you spend time with people, these feelings get built up. It's hard to let them go. You have to try your best to avoid letting go of some of these happy chemicals. Your mind is trying to tell you that you have to let go. But you are trying to what? Desperately, you're trying to hold on to these happy feelings. So you fight. And it doesn't feel right. You see, you were in a relationship where you had some emotional support. This was a thing that you depended upon. Your partner was there for you. Someone to lean on when things got tough. Someone to be there for you. They became your support person. And now you're feeling just desperate. Who are you going to lean on now? Where are you going to find your support? All of these things will tell you that life has changed. And without realizing it, you got to adjust. The teary-eyed is going to come and go. And it might even last longer than you want it to. However, your immediate goal is to counteract this feeling, this withdrawal, and work on listening to what your thoughts are telling you. You can turn this thing around in healthy ways. But first, people, we have to grieve. And we know it's a process, but we have to grieve. When they leave, we have to grieve. And we have to realize that when someone close to you leaves and the relationship is over, you're going to grieve. However, there's stages to this grieving that we can understand, right? Shock will most definitely be the first phase based on how it presents. When you go through this relationship breakup, several things will happen suddenly. Your heart takes a beating because now you're discovering you're replaceable in the heart of someone you thought would love you forever. That was it for you. This was the person. And you may feel as if you become irrelevant in his life. No more. You might even feel that you're not worthy, you're disposable. That person didn't value you. It was almost like a throwaway. And your identity has suddenly changed. You are no longer a part of a couple, a we situation. And there is nobody to check up on you at night, to care for you, to be there for you, to lean on. And when you're there, he's nowhere to be found. And those familiar sights and sounds and smells and touches that you're accustomed to, they're different. So what happens is your body shifts into this automatic pilot. It's called survival mode. You got to compensate for this area, for this feeling, for this empty space that you may feel. The chemical composition from this breakup has forced you to look at things. And you will get physically and emotionally stressed. And these levels of comfort do not even exist. You feel very uncomfortable. Your heart is beating 1,000 times. It's racing in 1 minute. You feel as low and as bad as you have ever felt. And you slide into the denial. It starts to play with your emotions. You become convinced that the breakup isn't real. It's not happening. It couldn't be happening to you. He didn't really mean what he said. He's just gone. He's coming back. And you can't see your life without this person. You convince yourself that he's just going through some phase in his life and he's going to break out of it. He's going to recapture his sense of self and he just might be walking through that door. So you continue to live your life as if you're still in a relationship because you have this chemical withdrawal we talked about. It's your body. It's responding to this breakup. It wants to keep you happy. These chemicals flowing. And so, what happens? Your mind ends up playing these tricks on you. And it presents this narrative, which keeps this dopamine flowing. But inside you know, it's not true. Your mind is playing tricks on you. But you still believe it anyway, despite these feelings that you're getting. This chemical is working on your mind. It's your subconscious response to the breakup. And it's very difficult to recognize because you're in denial. This feeling has now shifted into avoidance. It means you're avoiding facing the truth of your current situation. You don't want to look at the reality. You don't want to feel the pain. You don't want to suffer. See, the difference between denial and avoidance is your recognition of these tricks that your mind is playing on you. And you lack the will to do anything about it. So you resort to avoidance. You're avoiding the real pain of the breakup. So you continue with this false narrative that you're still together. And you resort back to these questions. How could this happen to me? Why did we break up? Our relationship was perfect. It's not here anymore. So now you're desperate for answers. See, this is a phase where your mind is not rational at all. You are incapable of thinking rationally because you are way too emotional. You have an emotional mind. You may even act impulsively. Binge eating, trips on a whim, buying things because you feel good about yourself and you want to make yourself feel good about yourself, or you start arguing over something small, or being ignorant and rude to people for no good reason at all. So you start to think of the whys and the hows, and for every reason, you got a counter argument for what happened. See, this is a phase where it's just like a light landing, right? You tell yourself there's no good reason for this breakup. You know, he left for illegitimate reasons, right? Reasons you can disprove. You weren't negative. You weren't being a bad person. Everyone has bad days every once in a while. You're really at that stage where you're actually not really acknowledging or admitting that there really was a problem. You're still avoiding the reality of this loss. You're not really ready. So you start that external bargaining, right? See, this is a phase where you'll do anything. You're a superwoman. You can single-handedly repair this situation. Everything that was wrong with the relationship, you can fix. It will be better, stronger than it ever was. You'll see. See, you're still using your emotional mind. You still have no ability to use the logic and the reasoning because they are stuck in the far corners of your mind. You know that you can't fix everything by yourself. You are aware you're in grief. So you have to begin to examine what you really can do to fix things. And if you may have had some fault in this thing, what's the chances that you can really fix it? Usually it's both of your fault, right? Both you have some accountability issues in this relationship. Something went wrong and it wasn't just one person. And you'll discover that. But first you have to understand you're in this grieving phase, right? You're starting to bargain with yourself how you can change things. Is this an unreasonable burden that you're putting on yourself, right? You're still in a state of wanting to avoid or alleviate the pain of the breakup. So you're not facing what you know to be the truth. You just can't do it. You can't fix it by yourself. So this external bargaining is at play. And you might even get deeper with the internal bargaining. Like, if I had only done this, if I had only done that. See, once you say that, if I had only picked him up after work on time, if I had only made him this, if I had only shared my opinion with him during that argument that we had, if I've only sided with him, if I had only pushed him into buying something that he really wanted as opposed to what I wanted. It's that if I only had done this. That's the internal bargaining. So you can't go back in time to fix these things. There are no do-overs. We cannot alter the past, no matter how badly you want to. Think about it. Even if you didn't do what he wanted you to do, was it in you? You trying to envision new outcomes to the problems is not going to help because you cannot change that situation. That happened in the past. With this internal bargaining, you have to realize that's the past. You got to work on the present and the future. And you must watch out for the relapse phase. You're convincing him to try again, or he's convincing you. Maybe in the relationship you've been here before, where you've broken up in the past and you're just coming back together, right? But really, this is just an attempt to alleviate that pain of the breakup. Your mind still wants that happiness hormone to kick in and stay afloat. If you can just get back together with him, right? Everything's going to be okay again. And this is a flaw in your logic. Unless the two of you did some serious work on yourselves during the breakup, the problems and the hurt, that pain, they're still there. And just think, if one of you does decide to reconcile because the other begging, then this is really temporary. It's not really a long-term fix in most cases, right? Most people do not get back together because of the begging, the desperation, and make it last. Because no real discussion has occurred to try to fix the problems. It was based on desperation. Unfortunately, you're not only avoiding the pain from the split, but you're not envisioning what it's going to be like after you get back together. See, because all you're doing is envisioning your life without him. And you want him back now. So you do these things to get him back. That temporary fix called relapse. What you want to do is get yourself to that initial acceptance phase. And this is where you start to be realistic and accept that, this is real. This breakup is just a fact of life. And you start to see yourself functioning again, living without him. Now, you're still going to have those moments, those irrational moments where you look and see the why and the how, what happened, and you try to bargain your way back, right? These things are going to go in and out of your mind initially during this acceptance phase. But thankfully, your logical mind is kicked in. It's starting to take over, right? You will see yourself revisiting those old times a little bit less. Each time you'll come to the initial acceptance that you'll stay a little longer in this phase, right? It won't have such a long-lasting effect on you, this relationship. It's going to be uncomfortable for the first while, for sure. You ain't even going to know what to talk about, But each time it'll get easier. You'll become more comfortable, and you will see your way past talking about the how and the why of it. It gets a little bit easier, and you start finding these reasons to get back in touch with them. You begin to see the logic in not reaching out to open up those old feelings, those past emotions. You slip out of this phase, right? You stop all that texting, that dependency, right? You become a little bit more independent as time progresses. You grow more and more accepting of this breakup. Your life starts to get back on track. Your confidence increases. Your value, you see it again in you. You begin to see your life in the future instead of dwelling on that past. You might get frustrated as you go in and out of this initial acceptance. You might even feel that you're not progressing in your healing. But in time, you will. You just got to be patient. It is all a part of the process. And you can't forget about that anger, that emotion. It comes in many forms and shapes and sizes. A lot of what you feel during these anger phases depends on how soon after the breakup occurred. That anger could kick in right away. And you might even get engaged in that negative self talk. That might kick into gear. You might start being negative on yourself, talking about how you're overweight, you don't look good anymore, you feel stupid. That negative self talk, right? You place the blame, you're venting your anger in one way or another. Ultimately, what you want to do is you want to be able to manage this anger so that you can be productive, pull the pieces of your life back together so you can move forward in some direction that's very productive. And anger over the breakup can propel you forward. It can make you make some moves, take some action, and execute things in your favor. And you know what? This might even lead you to some hope. And we will visit hope many, many times, right? Hope that you'll get back together, right? And that's something that you might go through. You might be there right now, for all I know. You might be at that stage where you will say anything or do anything to rekindle that relationship. Just make sure that hope doesn't turn into hopelessness, which is a truly desperate emotion. It could be one of the worst emotions you could feel. And they say hopelessness is usually attributed to when you're feeling like you're facing death. Well, this is not it. So, when you're going through this feeling at this time, you need to remember that even when you think you're about as hopeless as you can get, you still hold on for some sort of hope somewhere inside of you, deep, deep, deep inside. So when you move through this grieving process, you will drift from hope that maybe it's possible that you can get back together and save this relationship to hoping you could survive without it. When you start thinking that way, things are getting better. Your feelings are moving you in the right direction when you're getting some feelings of hope. So don't get into that hopelessness. The hope is what's important. Just the knowing and the feeling that there's brighter days ahead and that you could see yourself getting there. Once you begin hoping for survival, you can begin to build on your accomplishments. You can attain your goals. And everything that you accomplish, no matter how small, it builds and builds. And you start to win. You don't need to beat up yourself. Don't beat yourself up. If you get stuck in a phase for a while, don't let people tell you that you need to move through these phases faster or that you're feeling too silly and unnecessary, right? Don't let them tell you what you're feeling. Each of these phases we discussed is necessary for you to move through. And it's healthier when you acknowledge that this is the phase I might be in. It becomes a state of mind. And you become a more confident person when you can acknowledge that these are the phases that you might have to go through when you deal with the relationship breakup, right? Recognize that what you are experiencing is normal. regardless of the phase. And you might even skip some. And you might even stay in some phases longer. It seems like forever. However, get support if you feel it's too long. But I'll tell you something right now. You got to swallow that self-pity. The whole woe is me thing, that's not going to help you at all. You're going to feel it for a while. You're going to allow yourself some time, but never more than a few days at most. Right? It's time to pick yourself up, get your confidence, start looking to the future, or working on what you have to work on, acknowledging, keeping your mind in check, get your energy and your focus in line, and know that there are days that may not feel good to you. You might not even feel like getting up out of bed. But those are the days when I tell you, the counselor is going to tell you straight up, close your eyes and visualize, and you'll realize that you have a prize, a personal power inside of you. And you could do it. And you could turn your life around. And if you choose to go back into that relationship, that is what you do. You don't punish yourself. Because sometimes if you really look at a relationship and you see that you can't control certain things in that relationship, there was reasons for it. You know, if he did walk, you have to look at some of that. And if you can't control that, you have to realize it takes two. So something was going wrong. And if you have somebody that's not willing to work on it, or they never wanted to even consider that there was something going on, and they just walked out, that's going to be some repeat behavior. You can't fix that person if they don't want to be fixed. So you got to start thinking of other things, positive influencers like visualization. Visualize yourself going on a vacation, getting some positive things accomplished in your life. Start to refocus, right? Take time out for yourself. Do not isolate yourself, you know? Think about it. Do things for yourself. Have some positive vibes. Motivate yourself. Get out of that funk. Change it up. Change the environment. Do something that is going to work. Something that's going to change your state of mind. See, you have a conscious mind. See, most of us think our conscious mind is in control. Now, that is a part of the mind that we're aware of. It's where we chill. The problem is that our conscious mind is only partly responsible for our thoughts. Your brain has this tremendous capacity. And even though where you render your daily services in that conscious mind, it's not doing all the work. Not even most of the work. Right? Think about a computer we talked about. See, computers have keyboards. You see, when you strike these keyboards, things happen on your computer. And that's the same as your conscious mind. It receives inputs like self-talk, comments people make toward you, information you've gathered. It stores these things for you, your conscious mind, including the criticism. See, your conscious mind works based on what is going on around you rather than what you're working on. Research has shown for sure that people who are in a coma and under anesthesia, later on, they're aware of what was going on while they were in that state. See, your conscious mind can receive inputs you're not even aware of. See, your conscious mind basically has two major functions. It directs your focus. It has the ability to imagine what is not real. Think of it as the conductor of your subconscious. It's always sending signals to the subconscious, and your subconscious responds to it accordingly. See, the subconscious mind will actually bring up all those old negative thoughts, feelings, events. They all come to the surface. So now that you know that the subconscious mind is storing all these feelings and emotions and even past events, you have to replace these thoughts. You have to get new thoughts. Replace that negativity with positive thoughts, right? This means that you use positive thoughts, emotions, and experiences, as well as relaxing and calming thoughts to change your point of view. You actually have to reprogram yourself, right? And you're going to have to start immediately because you want to replace the negativity with positive. Just know that they're in there lingering. If you don't get rid of them, they're going to keep reoccurring and keep agitating you at some point. Just be aware that your conscious mind has a vivid imagination. You dream through your conscious mind. Your subconscious mind only operates with the memories and the data fed into it. But your conscious can dream stuff, right? You can use visualization to help alter the data your conscious mind is putting into the subconscious mind, right? So when you use visualization to change your subconscious thoughts, you are sending new positive information to your subconscious through your conscious mind, right? Be consistent and persistent in making things happen. Just be aware that your conscious mind is in the driver's seat and your subconscious can bring back all these negative feelings and emotions and experiences, and it has to change. So you have to reprogram yourself using your conscious mind. These are powerful tools that you can use. I strongly recommend visualization, relaxation, focus. It's very helpful when you're going through these experiences. And this is where we come to a crucial point. We have to discuss this because now we come to the realization with all these phases that we have to go through this entire process. We have to come back to signs that he was preparing to leave. And the truth is that you need to be able to identify, because this is not going to be your last relationship. You're going to move forward and you're going to have other relationships. So you need to be able to recognize the signs of him checking out so you can work on trying to mitigate this disaster before it gets into your next relationship and it becomes terrible for you. He could have been telling you all along. You just weren't paying attention. He might have been thinking to himself, you know what? We're really not meant to be together. We weren't meant for each other. He's been thinking this for a while, but now he's starting to verbalize. He may be saying things like, maybe we just aren't meant to be together. Or this shouldn't be so hard. Or maybe we're just too different and we can't get along and I don't know how we got together. He's using these phrases to gauge your response. He wants you to know that we're not on the same page. And if you come back and say, this does seem like it's very challenging and we are having some real difficulty, it should be different, then he'll think that you're both in the same page, right? You're both speaking the same language, so maybe he can proceed with what he was thinking about without a whole lot of drama, because it seems to me like she's feeling the same way that I do and we're putting too much into this and it seems like we should be breaking up. But I don't feel like talking about it anymore. I've convinced myself that I'm done, right? So you don't want to let him get away with making these statements. Call him out on his thoughts. Let him know you're no dummy. You're not stupid, right? This will be the least you could do for him, right? This will at least give you some sort of power in the decision making. You, right? You may even choose to end it before him if you get hip to this game, but you don't want to give him those outs, especially if that's not what you're feeling. You got to state it. Because there are times when you might feel that something's wrong, something's terribly wrong. This is called this intuition. It starts to kick in and you start getting this feeling in your gut that something is terribly wrong. The relationship is just not right. And you have to learn to trust your gut. Know that probably it isn't right. And when you feel this dread before you go out with him, or you just get these feelings when you broke up with him, that, wow, I knew it all along. Your instincts don't fail you often, but we don't believe in them. That's the problem. But this is a time more than anything that you need to listen. When you get this feeling, rather than face the truth, what are you doing? You're telling yourselves that it's not real, it's just my imagination, and you discover you were right all along. Things have just changed. You have a different sense. You sense something's going on. You sense a disturbance. right? You're looking at things differently. You might notice that he isn't texting you as often. He's not hanging out with you anymore. You don't even really have sex at all. And when he is around, he feels and demonstrates that he's not involved with you and he doesn't care anymore. These are all signs that he's checked out of the relationship emotionally. Your intimate moments together aren't happening anymore. They're few and far between. Cuddling, a movie, it doesn't exist anymore. He even ghosts you. And this is when someone suddenly and without explanation withdrawing from all communication, right? Usually this happens at the beginning, but it can happen in the middle, close to the end. This pulling back, less and less communication, trying to get itself out, right? Easing his way out of the relationship. And it happens. It can be quite ridiculous, but sometimes the obvious isn't so obvious because we don't want to look at things. But see, for example, if date night becomes a thing of the past, right? That's problematic because we want to spend time with the women we love. So if we start avoiding date night or canceling plans or not being interested in any excursion that you have put forth, then you can get a sign that things are changing. Maybe we become bored with your company. We've lost interest. And sometimes they show it, right? They show their unhappiness. These men, they do. And it starts to eat away at them. And it comes out. They become angry all the time, lashing out at you, right? And he might not realize that he's causing this uncomfort and pain to you to such a degree because he's angry all the time. But in reality, he's mad about something and he's taking it out on you. And you know what? You're taking the heat. You're being cool about it. You see him ranting and raving and carrying on, but you know things aren't the way they should be, but you let him go off, right? You know, things that wouldn't normally set him off are setting him off. Small things escalate quickly into big things. Rather than calmly discussing an issue, he's going from 0 to 100 like a little baby, out of control, right? Blowing his top, losing his cool, and really, all because he doesn't know how to express himself or he's unhappy and unsatisfied. So he's created an unhealthy situation and he's communicated negatively. And he's doing the passive aggressive sometimes and he's being quite aggressive at other times. However, the relationship is suffering. I just think that sometimes you might have to realize that he left because you're no longer a priority in his life, right? And he starts to show little behaviors that are irritating to you that you just look past, right? Starts to tease you. Sometimes in front of you directly, and then there's other times he teases you behind your back, making these gestures or making comments when you're not around to others that you love and know, right? If he really loved you, he would not talk negatively about you behind your back. It's terrible behavior, but that's how he shows his dissatisfaction. And he just might get bored. Simply put, he could be bored with you. Or he might have felt smothered by you, you know? We've heard of this thing called nature, and you might be a nurturer. It's not something to be ashamed of. Caring, nurturing person. However, when you see that your man's down or he's having some problems, you want to go in there and nurture him. It's only natural. And this instinct that kicks in, you want to love him. You want to take care of him, bring him back to normal. And you have good intentions. However, instead of running after him and forcing him to tell you what's wrong, right? You'd be better if you will give him some space and allow him to come back when he's ready to share or willing to deal with it. You know, you got to leave him be sometimes instead of just being in there being the rescuer. It's not good for a lot of men. They have to learn to work these things out. Many of them consider themselves fixers of problems. However, when they can't fix their problems, right, they, they get into a huff, or they get discouraged and they get frustrated and they need to work it out. They need to vent it out. They need to do things to come to the realization that it's okay, that it's going to be all right in the end. But this takes space and time. And when we don't give that to them, they start to shut down. So we have to be careful with that nurturing of men too much, too often. You got to learn that they have to vent it out. And there could be a time where he's showing you signs that he wants you back if you get to that point. And you have to be mindful that he could call you frequently. He gets drunk, texts you. He keeps in touch with your friends or your family. He makes changes, right? He broke up, but he's getting himself together. He's trying to look better for you. He's ramping out his workouts, his routines. He's seeing a therapist. He's trying all kinds of things. He's not dating someone else. He generally wants to talk things out. He apologizes. He seems to be everywhere, and he's not in a hurry to get his stuff, right? So he leaves his things at your place, but it seems to drag out. Be careful with that one, right? Because if you moved on and his stuff's still there, it's going to drag you through the mud, right? Because you're like, oh, when's he going to get his stuff? If you want to move on, right? So, how do you get him back? Well, that's a good one. But that's going to be in my next podcast, how to get him back. We've had some great conversation today. I want to say thank you to all my listeners, and I really, truly do appreciate you. And we're going to go deep into this thing because we're trying to make lives better. And the only way we can make lives better is to get a better understanding of each other. And we're going to do that. And we're committed to do that. So I want to say thank you to all my listeners, and be like the wise old bird and spread the word. Thank you. Take care of yourself.